Hey everyone,
Hey guys.
welcome to another Travel Therapy Mentor video. Today we're going to be talking about a road trip, a little bit of recap on our road trip. We're almost halfway through right now. Also talking about van life versus RV life. That's a question that we've gotten a lot recently. People see us traveling in the van, people know we traveled in an RV for years. They wonder why we don't do road trips in an RV and why we didn't travel in a van. We get both of those questions. So why we didn't take travel contracts in a van. So we're going to talk about pros and cons of both of those, why we've chosen to do things the way we have, and talk about our trip. It's been great. So Whitney's going to introduce us, and I'm going to get this video shared in a couple different groups.
All right. Hey everybody. Welcome. If it's your first time tuning in, we appreciate it. If you've watched before, welcome back. For those of you who may not know us, my name is Whitney Aiken.
I'm Jared Kazaza.
And we're both traveling doctors of physical therapy. We're the faces behind the Travel Therapy Mentor page. And for those of you who know us from way back in our blog days, we have our Fifth Wheel PT blog, which was actually named after traveling in a fifth wheel camper, which we did for 3 years. So we've got a lot of experience with RV living. We lived full time, traveled around the East Coast in our RV for 3 years. And then last year we bought a minivan to be able to do road trips in. So we want to talk a little bit about that for those of you guys that aren't familiar with that. I know we get a ton of questions about kind of tiny living options. Lots of travel healthcare professionals think about either RVing or van life. So hopefully we can clue you guys in on some of that and update you on our road trip, which has been amazing. So thank you guys that are tuning in live. I know a lot of you guys will watch this later on the replay. Whether you're watching live on Facebook or the Facebook replay, we'd love if you'd hit that thumbs up button. Let us know that you watch. Say hello in the comments. I see that Nick is already on live and said hello. Hey Nick, are you going to be at TravCon, Nick? I don't know if we've heard from you. It'd be great to meet you there finally. We're getting ready to go to the Travelers Conference, which we're going to talk about, so hope to see some of you guys there. And for those of you guys that will listen later on the podcast, we appreciate you guys too.
Yeah, so this is actually our third cross-country road trip like this, and all three of them were going to Vegas for TravCon. And right now we're only an hour and a half away. We're going to leave right after this video. We'll be in Vegas shortly for anybody that's watching that's going to be there. And these trips, so we kind of decided we wanted to go to TravCon in 2019. We've been traveling for 4 years then. We wanted to meet other travelers. We'd already met a lot of people and of course met a lot of people online, but meeting travelers in person is a little different, and we really wanted to do that. So we thought about flying out to Vegas for it. We're from Virginia, so we decided instead of flying out there, it would be a good opportunity to drive across the country, meet up with some people along the way, see some national parks, and go to the conference. So we decided that in 2019, and we've done that every year since. Last year it was canceled, but we still went to Vegas, met up with some people there, even though the conference didn't actually happen. So that's the reason we're on this road trip, and that's the reason we started doing these cross-country trips, was to go out to TravCon to meet up with other travelers.
Yeah, so as of 2019, we'd actually never driven across the country before. So many of you guys may know from listening to our videos before, we've actually only ever taken contracts besides our Hawaii contract on the East Coast. So we'd traveled for 4 years at this time as of 2019, but we'd only ever worked on the East Coast, so we'd never had a reason really to drive across the middle of the country. So when we had the opportunity to take some time off, go to TravCon, we didn't need to take back-to-back contracts at that time. We were like, this will be a perfect opportunity to see some of the country. So by that time, we'd already been to 30 different countries. We'd been all over Asia, all over Europe, and we'd seen some amazing things, but we were like, there's still so much of the US we haven't seen. So 2019, that was one of our absolute favorite trips, having traveled across the country then and seen so many national parks and new things. In our 2019 trip, we just took my car and we stayed with friends at Airbnbs and hotels at that time. But Jared had thought about doing a van at some time or another. He had looked into it before, and he was like, maybe next time we could buy a van and travel across the country. And we were kind of like, we have the RV, and so we looked into different options. And so we're going to discuss a little bit about why we decided on for our 2020 road trip to do a minivan, and then kind of what happened with our RV as well.
Yeah, every year that we've done this trip now, we figure out more things, we change things. So 2019, we traveled for about 4 weeks across the country and back. The main purpose was to go to TravCon, so we didn't think that much about we wanted to see things along the way, but we didn't think about going much out of the way to see other things. And that trip felt really rushed to us. So 4 weeks just going there and back, not seeing that much. And the places we did stop, they were just short periods of time. Some of the national parks we were only there for like half a day. It really seemed very rushed. So we didn't want to do that again. So last year we did an 8-week trip across the country, and that felt like a little too long. So this year is kind of in the middle. So first year was 4 weeks, last year was 8 weeks, this year is probably going to be about 6 weeks. And I think that will be about perfect for us. It won't seem so rushed, but at the same time, we'll have enough time to spend at parks and to not feel like we just started and it's over.
Yep. So we're already 3 weeks into our trip, and if you guys have been keeping up with us on Instagram and Facebook, you've seen some of our pictures. We took just like the first week to get from the East Coast to kind of the middle of the country. So, went through like West Virginia, Indiana, Illinois, Omaha, Nebraska, Iowa. Just a couple, 1 or 2 days in each of those places, just with the main goal of getting out west. We had a lot more national parks that we wanted to visit in Colorado and Utah, so we spent the last couple weeks all around Colorado, all around Utah. It's been amazing. We've seen some really cool stuff. And I think this time we had a lot better balance in our trip, because last year, for me personally, the van life was just a little bit too much, like van camping so many days in a row. We had sometimes last year where we were like 6 or 7 nights in a row without having a break at a hotel or something. And we've done a lot better job this time. We had a lot of friends to stay with along our route. We've done a couple hotel stays. So far, we've actually not had to pay for any accommodations on this trip, which is pretty crazy. We've either had friends or family to stay with, free hotel nights, or free campsites that we stayed at. So we'll see. We might have to end up paying for some lodging on the second half of the trip, but so far so good.
Yeah, so starting last year when we got the van, that's kind of when we decided we're going to have this van to sleep in. We'll be able to, especially out west, stay on national forest land for free. And we started looking more at what national parks we wanted to go to, how long we wanted to spend at those places, where we could sleep outside the national parks for free. And when you get out west, there's a lot of places that you can sleep for free. Like on the East Coast, it's mostly like Cracker Barrels and Walmart parking lots. But on the West Coast, or in the middle of the country, there's a lot more land, and there's a lot of national forests where you can just park and sleep for free. And as long as you have a tent or a van or something like that, or an RV. So that was a big thing, as we were trying to figure out which national parks we wanted to go to, and where we'd be able to stay outside the national parks for free.
Mm-hmm. So in terms of those logistics, for those of you guys that might be considering a road trip where you'll be tent camping or van camping or RV camping, we've used a lot of different apps and websites to be able to find free places. You'd be surprised how many free places you can stay overnight. So we use freecampsites.net a lot. That website is really helpful. There's also a lot of
Campendium.
apps. Yeah, Campendium, iOverlander, The Dirt. There's a bunch of apps for finding either free or paid campsites, but we really like freecampsites.net. That's the one we use the most.
Yeah. Okay. So now, in terms of why we chose to go a van and like a minivan and build a platform in the back of that to stay in on these road trips instead of going with the camper, it's a question we get a lot. There's a variety of reasons. One, after having a camper, our fifth wheel, for 3 years, I was always stressed out driving the fifth wheel. So pulling the fifth wheel at the truck was always a stressful thing for me, especially backing in places and especially in busy areas. And a lot of the national parks are pretty busy. So that was something that there was almost no chance that I wanted to pull a fifth wheel or a big camper through national parks, through all these busy areas. A minivan is much more versatile. You can get in, you can get out. It's a lot easier that way.
Yeah, we had actually been considering selling our RV since like 2019, and if you guys had been watching back then, we had a little bit of a debacle on like trying to get it sold between our travels to Asia and Europe, and we ended up having it in storage for a long time. So we were kind of ready to like finish that part of our journey and stop traveling in an RV as travel therapists, because we weren't going to be taking contracts as often. So we had actually already sold our RV before we decided to take this 2020 road trip. So for us, that was kind of an end of an era. We didn't even have the RV anymore, but some people didn't know that, and they were like, "Where's the RV? Why didn't you bring it?" But even if we still had it, that RV, that fifth wheel, we had a 33-foot fifth wheel and a diesel truck. For us personally, the way that we're traveling on these road trips wouldn't be an option. We do see people that take large RVs to these national parks, but we can only imagine that they're probably only going to one national park for a weekend or a whole week or a couple of weeks, not doing a lot of moving back and forth. For us, we had a lot on our agenda that we wanted to see both last year and this year. So for us, taking an RV, you know, 1 day, 1.5 days to one park, and then you're traveling 5 hours, and then trying to find somewhere to park at the next place, and the next place, and the next place. I mean, we have just dozens of places on our itinerary. For us, that really wasn't feasible in an RV of that size. Now, if we had had a different type of RV, like a smaller one, like a truck camper, or maybe a small Class B or Class C RV, that could have maybe been more of an option. But for us with our fifth wheel, that was certainly not an option.
Yeah, so versatility was a huge thing. Another really big factor, because like Whitney said, we'd already gotten rid of our fifth wheel by, I think, our first trip. But we always considered, back when we first started traveling, I was like, oh, I want to get a Class C and travel around the country in that. It'll be wonderful. And the more I thought about it and the more we learned about campers and stuff, it just didn't seem as good of an idea as I originally thought. So another big thing was gas mileage. So driving a camper or an RV, for example, our truck pulling the fifth wheel, we got about 6 to 8 miles a gallon. And that was diesel, which is usually more expensive. Whereas in the minivan right now, we get somewhere between 26 and 28 miles per gallon. So literally, last year was a 12,000 mile road trip. Gas cost with the van, I can't remember exactly how much it was, but it was over $1,000 in the van, and that would have probably been about 4 times as much had we taken the fifth wheel on that trip. So gas mileage on these long trips where we're making a lot of stops is a huge factor. Even just the van is expensive. So pulling the truck or pulling the fifth wheel with the truck would have been very expensive.
Yeah, so gas mileage is a big thing, just the size of it, the feasibility of getting in and out of places. Also, what we were talking about kind of like what RVers call boondocking, which is where you just stay somewhere for the night, where you don't hook up to a campsite or anything like that. That's a lot easier, in our opinion, in a van, and you can kind of do a lot more what they call stealth camping, where people may or may not know that you're staying in the vehicle, and you can kind of get away with staying places that you maybe would get yelled at, or you wouldn't be so certain if you were in a big RV and it's like very obvious that you're sleeping there. If you're just in a van, especially a minivan, but even if you had like a Sprinter van or something like that, it's a little less obvious if you're staying in places like parking lots or having to do what we call urban camping along your route.
Yeah. So another thing in terms of short-term trips like this is our minivan cost us, we got I think it's a 2017 minivan last year, and it cost us $10,000. That is very inexpensive in terms of like RVs or fifth wheels, campers, that kind of thing. They're usually a lot more expensive than that. So the cost of actually buying the minivan and then putting a platform in it was pretty low compared to anything we possibly could have gotten with a camper RV. And then on top of that, the cost for repairs is significantly less with a minivan than it is for a camper, RV, and a truck.
Yeah, and on top of that, when we had sold our RV and our truck, Jared actually didn't have a vehicle, like a daily driver vehicle anymore. And we went about 6 months just having one car because we were traveling a lot internationally. We weren't using our car that much. So Jared actually needed a vehicle. And so we ended up just having the minivan as a road trip vehicle, but also our second vehicle. So we've kept it for an entire year since we bought it last year for our road trip. And we've used it for so many other things besides the road trip. Jared drove it to work when we were doing our PRN jobs. Like, it was our second car to get around town. We helped many people move last year. It was actually kind of cool. We just left the seats out of the minivan and kept the platform back there, which was our road trip bed, but we were able to move furniture in and out of there, lots of Lowe's trips and things like that. So it's actually a really convenient vehicle just to have.
Yeah. The minivan has been great. And so I think one thing that would have changed our decision on this is if we had been staying in places longer. So I think most people that take an RV on a trip like this, they're staying in a national park for like a week. And if that's the case, that takes a lot of the hassle out of moving there, and then you just park it and leave it. You don't have to worry about it. You don't have to move every day in it like we're doing. That would have made a big difference. So if we just parked somewhere, left it, went to a national park, explored it for a week, just came back to sleep, then that would have been a lot easier. But the kind of trips we do where we're only at national parks like 2, maybe 3 days, and we're usually parking for free outside the park, it just wasn't as feasible.
We've, since becoming RV people and getting more into this community, we've noticed so many RV families and RV people end up going through different types of rigs throughout their life. It's kind of interesting. It's like they'll have this one for this stage of their life, and then they'll like sell that one and change to this type. And we always thought that was so interesting, but I kind of see now how like maybe different phases of your life or different types of trips you could maybe benefit from one or another. The minivan has been really good for us for these past couple trips, but it's literally just a place to sleep. Like you can't really, there's not much room in there for anything else. Just store some stuff, sleep there, go do your thing, come back, sleep. It's a van, you know, it's more like car camping. We've talked about in the future, like maybe when we're a little older or have a family or something, it would be maybe cool to have one of those like Class B or Class C RVs or a truck camper, which is the kind that just goes on the back of a truck bed. It's not a pull behind. You know, we talked about some kind of like road trip upgrades. But again, in terms of where we are in our life right now, this worked out really well, and it was such a low cost. Like those RVs can be super expensive. Like back when we first started looking at buying our fifth wheel to live in, we looked at some Class Bs and some Class Cs, and they can be super expensive, like $30, $40, $50, $60,000. So that would be something maybe down the line we would consider, but they're super costly. And if you're young and maybe don't have that much money saved, this is a great way to just travel and have fun, and you're flexible. Like we're young, we're like, whatever, we'll sleep in a van for a few nights and then we'll get a hotel, it'll be fine.
Yeah, we literally almost never spent any time in it. It's just to sleep. The other night we watched a movie for the first time in there. We downloaded a Netflix movie and watched it. But besides that, we just sleep in there, and then the rest of the time we're out doing things. So it's really not a big deal. There's not that much space. But yeah, if we were going to be places longer, it would be nice to have more room. Another big factor in the decision to choose a van for these types of trips is the resale value of a van over getting a camper and then trying to sell that. Resale value and hassle. So the van we bought for $10,000, we could probably sell it for pretty close to $10,000 right now.
Probably more because of the car shortage.
The car market's crazy.
We've actually been getting offers from the dealership that we bought it from they said they would pay over like $1,000 or $2,000 more than the Kelley Blue Book value if we wanted to sell it back. So we've been talking about that, but we haven't decided if we want to get rid of it just yet.
Yeah, so between these trips, we put almost 20,000 miles on it now. We could probably sell it for just about what we bought it for, and it would be very easy to sell. The minivans are always in demand for families and things. A camper, let's say we bought a Class C or a Class B camper and paid like $30,000 for it. It's a lot harder to sell that when you're done with it because, you know, the whole process of how is the person going to pay? Are they going to pay with cashier's check? Or, you know, how are you going to get the money? Is someone going to have that much money to give to you? Or are they going to have to get a loan from the bank? Those kind of things become a much bigger hassle with values over $10,000 or so.
Yeah, if you've never tried to sell something that costs more than $10,000,
or even buy something,
we've learned it is a pain. Like because we bought our RV used and our truck used, and our truck was maybe what 16 or 17,000.
16,000.
And we bought that from an individual, and it was such a hassle. Luckily, we bought the RV from a dealership, and that's easier to transact. But yeah, those are definitely some things to take into account. Moving big amounts of money are not easy, especially when you live a life on the road and you're kind of short on time sometimes. So
yeah, so I think the van, for our purposes right now, going to national parks, spending a couple days in each place, driving long distances. This trip's probably going to be about 7,000 or 8,000 miles in total. Just a short trip, 5 to 6 weeks. I think it's pretty much perfect for us. Anything longer than that, it starts to get a little bit of a grind. And like Whitney said, we intersperse hotel nights, staying with people, those kind of things, which break it up some. And then we also have Planet Fitness memberships where we're able to shower and things like that. So this year has been great. This trip's been really good. Seen a lot of cool stuff, and it's been extremely low cost compared to if we had bought a camper and tried to travel across country in that. Yeah,
so we highly recommend the minivan for short-term road trips, or even we know so many people that have like crossovers, SUVs that they can sleep in the back of, things like that. Some of those aren't as good on fuel, and some of them are a little more expensive. So that was another thing with going with a van, even though it's kind of got that like minivan mom status thing there, but we actually kind of like it. You know, we figure, hey, we're just a van family now. Maybe we'll just keep it until we have kids, and then we'll throw the seats back in there. But
yeah, and if you guys are wondering like about outfitting it, like making it able to sleep in, we are the least handy people that exist in the world. I don't know how to do anything, and we figured out how to build this platform and got everything, and it was no big deal. So if that's something that worries you, YouTube makes things really easy. And the costs for building the platform and getting everything ready were really low as well.
Also, I will point out too, we're not even camping people. We literally do not own a tent. We do not own a sleeping bag, except for this old sleeping bag that we found in like one of our parents' garages that the zipper doesn't work on. Like, we actually aren't camping people. We lived in an RV for 3 years, which is just an apartment on wheels, and we made this minivan just to sleep in. But we don't have like a camping stove or anything like that. So we're hoping at one point in our lives to get more into actual camping, actual backpacking. But right now we don't have all those skills or all that gear. And so you don't have to either. You can just be a normal suburban city person just like us and make this work if you want to. Because I never really thought that we would be this kind of people, but the experiences that we're having traveling across the country and sleeping under the stars and being right outside these national parks to wake up at 5 a.m. and get on the trail early to beat other people, like, it's just an unbelievable experience.
Yeah, and one last thing to compare this trip to a first trip we took, that we really got kind of burnt out on that trip. It felt really short, it felt really rushed. We were traveling in Whitney's car, we were finding Airbnbs every night. Well, when you're trying to find Airbnbs, you're trying to be pretty cost effective. You're only there for like we're talking about in the van, we're only there for usually 8 or 10 hours to sleep in between going to parks and things. Well, a lot of times the most fairly cost Airbnbs are not close to where you want to be. So you might end up driving an hour out of your way or paying more money than you need to be closer to a park. And even if you are like paying the most for an Airbnb, sometimes you still have to drive a long way. Whereas for us in the van out here, we leave the national park. Usually we can find somewhere to park within 15 or 20 minutes. And that's really cool because a lot of times we'll leave the park for the night and then drive right back in when the sun comes up. And we don't have to drive like an hour out of the way to an Airbnb. So that's been really good in terms of cost and time. So it's free to park outside, and then we don't have to drive as far. We can get back in the park early. That's been awesome.
Yeah, so it's been a fun experience. But now we want to kind of compare what it's like, you know, being just a short-term road trip type van life versus if you wanted to choose this type of life for long-term, because we do get a lot of questions about whether it would be a good idea to get a van to be a travel therapist and like live in the van. And of course, not necessarily a minivan, but more like a Sprinter van or like a camper van to live in, to travel around, to use as your home when you're a traveler.
Yeah, and people that ask this question, we get this a lot, they're usually asking it because of costs. So they think that I'll be able to buy this van, I'll be able to travel on assignments, live in the van, drive it to work, and then I won't have any housing costs. I'll be able to save a lot of money. Well, that's not possible. It's not feasible to do that. And the big reason why is due to the tax home situation. So if you guys don't have any ideas what tax homes are, we've made videos about that. We've got articles on it. But basically, in order to be a traveler and receive stipends, you need a tax home. You need to be duplicating expenses. If you're living in a van and let's say you're just parking it in a Walmart parking lot, you're driving it to work, you're say you're out west and you're able to like spend a week or two at a time in national forest land, you're not paying any money, you're not duplicating your housing. So your tax home situation there is really iffy, and you probably actually don't have a tax home. So for most people, when you travel in a van, you still have to park it somewhere at a campground or something and pay campground rent like you would with an RV.
Yeah, so this is if you choose to be a traveler who's going to maintain the tax home in order to receive the tax-free stipends. Now, if you choose not to maintain a tax home and not to, duplicate expenses like that, you can still travel, but they're going to tax all of your income. There are people who definitely skirt these rules and probably don't duplicate expenses like they're supposed to, or don't actually pay expenses back home to their parents. They just write down their parents' addresses and they get away with it and they receive the tax-free stipends. However, if they were to get audited by the IRS and they were not able to provide proof that they were paying expenses at home, at their tax home, and paying expenses at their travel location, then they would owe back taxes and penalties to the IRS. So for us, it's really not worth it to skirt those rules. You really want to make sure that you understand the tax home rules and follow them so that you can avoid those situations if you were to get audited. So just to reiterate what Jared was saying, is you need to have a tax home, which is either an apartment that you're renting, a house that you own, or renting a room in someone's house like your parents or your family member. You need to pay them rent, and then you also need to be paying rent or expenses at your travel assignment. So that could be if you have an RV, you pay rent to the RV spot, like the campground. You pay for that spot and you have proof of that. You have receipts, or you rent an apartment and you have proof. If you just decide to live off grid, so to speak, like in an RV where you boondock or in a van where you boondock, then you're not duplicating expenses, therefore you're not following the rules.
Yeah, and of course talk to a CPA about these types of questions, but the ones we've talked to, this is exactly what they say. So for all intents and purposes, when you travel in a van, your monthly costs are going to be the same as an RV. And if that's the case, because you have to pay for campground rent, whether you're traveling in a van or an RV, then why would you get a van that's much smaller than an RV that can be significantly bigger and is already outfitted for you to sleep in with showers and things like that? Most vans don't have those things. That's a really big thing to consider because, a lot of times, so let's say, okay, maybe you have to pay campground rent with either the van or the RV, but maybe the van will be cheaper. That's what some people think as well. So normally when we tell people about the tax home, they say, okay, yeah, but a van will cost less. If you've looked into some of these Sprinter vans that are like outfitted for sleeping in, for traveling in, a lot of times they're as expensive or more expensive than campers of the same year, which is kind of crazy. They're in very high demand. A lot of people want those. They want to travel in them. But you can buy a camper that's already ready to go, ready to sleep in for about the same price a lot of times, or sometimes less.
Yeah, we were really surprised actually when we started looking into vans, because when we were thinking about doing this for our road trip, we were like, oh, it'd be cool to have a Sprinter van. Like, obviously it'd be more space than a minivan. Like, this would be great. This would be perfect for road trips. Like, we didn't want to live in it. We knew it was going to be too small for us personally to live in, but we thought it'd be great. And we were like, oh my God, they're so expensive. What are they, like $50,000, $60,000, $70,000?
Well, it depends. So if you bought one that doesn't have anything in it and you do all the stuff yourself, you can get them for a few years old, probably 25 or 30,000, but then you have to put a lot of money into it, making it ready for you to sleep in and live in. Yeah, a lot of effort. Or you either effort time or you pay someone to do it. Or if you buy one that's already done, then they're very expensive. They can be 50 or 60,000 depending on what you get. Whereas our minivan was 10,000. Our camper and truck together that we lived in for 3 years were only less than 40,000 combined. So a lot of times you can get a fifth wheel and a truck for less than the cost of a van, and you have significantly more room. And if you're traveling to assignments, you're going to be there for 3 months, you want as much room as possible. So for most people, almost everyone, a van does not make that much sense for travel assignments.
Yeah, we were super surprised at how expensive they were. And I guess, like he said, it's just like they're in demand. It's such like a lifestyle, like hashtag van life. Like, people want to be part of that community. It's like it's almost like a cult in a way, because it's like Airstreams or like all those different things that are just like so iconic, and people are like, oh, this is cool, but like Airstreams are so much more expensive than regular RVs, and same thing, like Sprinter vans and things like that are so much more expensive. So we were really surprised by that, and I think once you guys start looking into it, you'll look at the cost effectiveness and be like, oh gosh.
Yeah, I wouldn't say cult, it's more like a community. There's
yeah,
these communities.
But it is. It's like, well, you know, they call certain movies like cult movies because they just have such a following. Like, it's just people are so excited about them, and I don't know. You know.
Yeah. So mainly the people that ask us about vans, they think the cost is going to be less. Ultimately, if you want to go that route, you want to go some sort of mobile route when you're going to travel assignments instead of finding short-term housing. In almost all regards, a camper or a fifth wheel or something like that probably beats a van. More room, probably about the same cost or sometimes even less. You're only moving it, so one hassle with an RV or a fifth wheel or a camper is that they're big and hard to move, like we talked about earlier. But if you're only moving it every 3 to 6 months, that's much less of a factor than like on our trip right now where we've been moving it every single day. So, definitely if you're considering those things, look at the costs of a fifth wheel or a camper and a truck compared to a van, and a lot of times you actually come out ahead with a fifth wheel and camper and you have more room. Yeah,
or even not a fifth wheel. Like, when you guys start looking into RVs, there's so many different types. There's Class A, Class B, Class C motorhomes. There's pull behinds, which are travel trailers or fifth wheels. There's truck campers, there's pop-up campers. There's so many different varieties. So if you're into that van life style, the Class B or Class C RV or motorhome is really similar to that, but it's a lot more equipped with more space. They usually have slide outs, which slide outs make such a big difference in your square footage, whereas vans don't have slide outs, so you're just limited to the size, the square footage of the van. I was super shocked to find out that a lot of van life people actually don't have real bathrooms in their van because there's just not enough space, whereas I don't know that there are any Class B or Class C motorhomes that are similar size, like as far as the actual length of the vehicle, maybe slightly bigger, but they all have bathrooms in them. I just couldn't imagine long term living without access to a bathroom in my RV or my van. Of course, we've done it in the minivan just for road trips. We're camping a lot. I mean, you're at campground type places, you're out in the wilderness. Like for short term, that's fine, but for actually living in it, that would be a real deal breaker for me.
Yeah, and on assignments, another thing along with that to think about is you need to look pretty professional for work. You don't want to go in looking like you haven't showered or your clothes are all wrinkled and things like that. So think about those things, because if you're going to travel in a van, a lot of times they don't have showers. So you need to figure out where you're going to be able to shower. You probably get a gym membership to go shower there, or you're going to outfit your van with a shower, which takes up a lot of room and water. And then you got to figure out how you're going to fill your tanks regularly and those kind of things. So there's a lot of logistics to think about for an assignment, a travel assignment, that you wouldn't really have to think about for a road trip. So vans, I think, are wonderful for road trips. And if you have a Sprinter van and you want to put that money into it instead of something like a minivan that's smaller, obviously you have more room. It feels more like a home, but they're a lot more expensive. I think that's great for a road trip. You can't really beat them. But for a travel assignment, I do not see the benefit of a van over just a traditional RV.
Yeah. So that's our take on that. We'd love to hear feedback from those of you guys that have had RV or van experience. Those of you that are looking into RVs or vans, please feel free to ask any questions in the comments or send us a personal message. I know a lot of you guys will watch this later versus live. We're doing it at a different time this week, but let us know if you have any questions about it. That's definitely our take on it personally.
Yeah, and this is something that we've thought a lot about, we've wrote about before, had tons of questions about this. The van thing is something I really wanted to do back when we first started traveling, and the more I just looked into it, the less it made sense. So I wish it would have worked out. I wish there was a way for travelers to go in a van, save a ton of money. If there was a way, I would be all over it, but I don't really see it working.
Yeah, but I could definitely see us, like I said, in the future getting some other type of RV. I don't think we'd ever go back to a fifth wheel, but I think it'd be cool to have like a Class B or Class C motorhome. It's kind of van-like. It's small-ish. It takes out some of that hassle of parking at national parks and getting in and out, but it provides a little bit more comfort and accommodations. For me, the bathroom is like a big thing. That's one of the hardest things about traveling in the minivan, is not having like regular access to a bathroom and a sink to like get ready and go to the restroom and all that. So I think that would be just such a nice creature comfort later in our lives if we had a little Class B or Class C motorhome.
Yeah, and we've talked about this before too. These road trips are amazing. These are some of our favorite trips we've ever done. The United States is beautiful. National parks are amazing. And we talked about in the future, if we have kids, taking them on trips like this would be an amazing thing to do, especially summer breaks or when they're young, even any time during the year. But at that point, a minivan obviously is not going to work, and we're probably going to have to consider something like a Class C motorhome that I think is what most families do, and I think that there's a reason for that. It works out very well.
Yep. So that's a little bit about van versus RV life. So luckily for us, we're halfway through our trip, and we have pretty much a whole week of hotel stays coming up. We stayed a couple nights here in Utah near Zion National Park, and today we're getting ready to go to Las Vegas. We'll be there for I think 4 or 5 nights for the Travelers Conference. So super excited. This is our first conference since COVID. Like, it's going to be super weird. I don't even know what it's going to be like seeing all these people in person finally after several years that we haven't seen. We're going to meet lots of our recruiters and our travel therapist friends, our travel nursing friends. Lots of fun events. So stay tuned for more on that. We'll be posting regularly on Instagram and Facebook about the conference, about the cool things that we're learning there, the fun events that are going on. Yep. And then we have just 2 weeks after that on the road headed back east. We're going to be going through the North Rim of the Grand Canyon, Page, Arizona, and through New Mexico, through Texas. We're hoping to go to New Orleans. We still need to look into that and see kind of how things are looking down there. If you guys have any insights about that, let us know. And then we'll cut back up toward Virginia. I think our last stop is in Kentucky at one of the national parks there.
Yeah, so 2 national parks left that we haven't been to on this trip. So most of the amazing part is, we've already gone through a lot of the national parks now. So this second half of the trip will be a little bit more laid back, which will be nice.
Yeah, and more hotel nights.
Yeah.
Because after like 3 weeks of van living, I'm kind of like, okay, like hotels are really nice. I like having showers every day and sleeping in a real bed.
Yep.
But it's been super fun.
Yep. All right. Well, thanks, guys. Let us know any feedback you have. If you have any suggestions in terms of future videos or any questions you have. A lot of these videos we make, articles we write, are based on questions we get a lot. So any questions you have, let us know, and we can always make a video about it.
All right, guys, have a great day, and we'll see you soon.
Yep. Take care.